Okay, going home. I was recently having a conversation with a friend, and he made the comment that he doesn't understand how students can forget to do their homework. He said they're kids, they have nothing else to worry about. I mentioned to him that that's not the first time that I hear that comment. And every time that I've heard it, I wonder to myself, either this person had a privileged childhood, or I had a terrible childhood. Or maybe they don't remember their childhood. Because kids are filled with fears. They worry about everything. They're afraid of so many different things. As an educator, I always try to be aware of the kids' fears. For example, when we have a thunderstorm, I always try to reassure them. And I can see the fear on their faces when they hear the thunder. And if a student might mention, "Oh, that's so loud," I'll tell them, "Oh yeah, it is really loud, isn't it? But isn't it neat that we're getting the rain? And the more thunder we have, the better, because the water will have more nitrogen." And I try to reassure them that everything's gonna be okay. As a kid, I was so full of fears, and I used to worry about so many different things. My grandmother used to live with us when I was growing up, and I was always afraid that she was gonna die in her sleep. So in the middle of the night, I would wake up and I would sneak into her bedroom, and I would go listen to her breathe. And if for some reason I couldn't hear her breathing, I would shake her until she reacted. Strangely, I used to do the same thing with my kids when they were babies. I used to be afraid of thunderstorms. I used to be afraid of needles. I used to be afraid of the dark. I even went through this phase that when I was taking a shower and I was washing my hair, I used to have hair back then. I was afraid that something was gonna happen to my family when I had my head all lathered and I couldn't hear because of the water hitting my head. So as soon as I finished rinsing off my hair, I would yell out, "Did somebody call me?" And of course, my grandmother or my mother or my brother or my sister would answer no. But actually, I just wanted to make sure that they were still there. As strange as it sounds to me now, as an adult, as a child, it was very real to me. But with my kids, it's even worse. I mean, we want our children to be responsible. We want our children to be careful. We want our children to make wise choices. But at the same time, I don't want for them to be afraid like I was afraid. And I remember thinking to myself every time I would make a stupid comment like, "Don't get on that because you're gonna fall down." And I would think to myself, why do I have to tell them they're gonna fall down? Tie your shoelaces because you're gonna trip. Why did I have to tell them that they were gonna trip? Anyway, being a parent is not always easy. Over the years, I have tried to learn to deal with my fears. For example, as a child, I was aware that I was afraid of the dark. So I would purposely walk into dark rooms or walk down a dark hall without having to turn on the light just to force myself to overcome that fear. As an adult, I had developed some sort of fear of needles, so I started to donate blood on purpose until I got over my fear of the needles. Even older, while riding a friend's motorcycle one time, I dropped the bike and I ended up breaking my leg. Now, of course, I didn't know that it was broken until about a month later, but that's another story. And so I developed a respect, a fear of motorcycles. So my way of dealing with that was that as soon as my leg healed, I went out and I bought a motorcycle, forcing myself to ride it. But the motorcycle actually sat in my garage for about 6 weeks before I actually had the courage to get up on it and take it for a ride. Silly, right? But when it comes to fears, I don't know what is silly and what is not. As adults, we all have fears. We're afraid of not having enough, and many times that keeps us from sharing what we do have. We're afraid of rejection, even at our age. We're afraid of dying. And I'm even afraid of being afraid. I looked that up. It's called phobophobia. So I hope that as many times as I might have instilled fear in my children because of something that I said, I hope that they saw me enough times trying to overcome my own fears, and maybe they learned something from that. For example, I had always been afraid of snakes, and as an adult, I decided that I wanted to overcome my fear of snakes, and so I started to collect them. I started off with one snake, and then I started to learn more about them, and I bought another snake. Long story short, at one point I had 25 snakes, and I let my students handle them, and I let my kids handle them, so they could get used to not being afraid of snakes. I know that these techniques that I use to overcome some of my fears won't work on everybody, but I hope that my children saw me trying to overcome some of my fears, and that they too will find ways of overcoming their fears. So yes, we want our children to be responsible. We don't want our children to get hurt. We want our children to make wise choices. But at the same time, we want for them to be fearless and not to be afraid to try new things, and not to be afraid to travel, and not to be afraid to take chances. So as parents and educators, I think it's important that we try to learn to overcome our fears so that our children and our students can learn from us.